Please introduce yourself and briefly explain your connection to the case.
I'm Gene Reynolds, former principal of Hazelwood East High School, retired from Hazelwood School District, and I'm glad to join this group today to discuss the Hazelwood versus Kuhlmeier case.
How long have you been principal at Hazelwood East High School?
19 years, or at that time, I was principal. We organized the school in 1974, and it's 50 years ago this year. And then we opened the new school in 1976. I became principal in 1976 and was principal until 1992. In 1992, I went to central office as the superintendent and retired in 1997.
Had you ever removed any articles in the past? How often did you intervene with the newspaper?
No, I never had. This came about because we were over budget in the printing budget, and the superintendent called me in and informed me in January of 1983 that we were over budget and we would have to go back to a 4-page paper, which was the standard for all the 3 Hazelwood High School. We all had a 4-page paper. My journalism teacher, however, was running 6 and 8 pages, so our printing budget was used up, and he said we'd have to keep the remaining papers for that year, 1983, to 4 pages. And I called the journalism teacher in and informed him of that. He wasn't too happy with it, but that's when I started counting pages. I didn't read, I didn't look at the articles. I just wanted to know that there was not more than 4 pages in the galley proofs, and there were not. So we got through January, February, and March, and then he resigned from the district, and we had a substitute after that.
Were there any outside factors that influenced your decision in this particular situation? If so, what?
I guess the only outside factor would be time, because that was the May 13 issue, and it was May the 10th when I saw the galley proofs, and I saw that there were 6 pages instead of 4. So then I started looking for reasons that I could remove 2 pages. And Mr. Emerson, who had filled in the absence of the teacher who retired, he called me. He was at the printing shop, and he called me and he said, have you seen the galley proofs? And I said, no, let me look at them. And so as soon as I pulled them out and I saw that there were more than 4 pages, there were 6 pages, I said, well, hold on. And so I went through them. I saw the pregnancy article and the other article that I pulled, and the runaway article was fine, but the other 2 needed to come out. So that was the only time that I ever took any articles out of the paper, and the one on divorce, that was the other article that came out. So after we'd made those changes, and the paper came back on Thursday, which was the next day, and the students got it, and they saw that those 2 pages were missing. This was the only protest in all of this that happened. They came to the office that Thursday, the 12th of May, and said, what happened to the other 2 pages? And I said, well, I took them out because we didn't have budget for them. And they were not happy about it. And I said, well, you have an option that the next paper, the last paper of the school year, senior superlative, you can dress those articles up and put them in that one. But it'll still be a 4-page paper. So whatever you have planned for that 4-page, that last paper, you're going to have to remove to substitute these these articles. And that didn't sit well with them. And that was the only, I don't call that a protest. That's the only time that they expressed their disappointment. The rest of the class had nothing to say about it, or at least to me, they didn't. Just there were 5 students that came to the office that day, and that was the end of it until the suit was filed.
Had there been issues regarding these particular topics in the community before? Why did you feel
I
it was
didn't hear
important?
that, Aiden.
Had there been issues regarding these particular topics in the community before? Why did you feel it was important to remove these articles specifically, such as divorce
We had reported on those topics before, pregnancy and runaways. We even reported on date rape. But those articles had the guidance of the teacher there. And since the teacher was not there to help them, to guide them, they put these articles in. I don't know. Since they had been publishing 6 and 8 page papers, they probably thought there wasn't anything wrong with it. I did not tell the students that we had a 4-page limit. I don't know if the teacher did or not, but they, I guess, brutally found out on that May 12th when they came to the office. But I felt, as a principal of the school, that in the pregnancy article, the first question that was not answered or addressed, were they going to keep the baby? The next question that was not answered was, how are they going to support this change in their life for the rest of their life? And were their parents going to be involved? Basically, the article said, we told our parents, we became pregnant. Our parents didn't kill us, so everything is all right. And everybody knows who has been in a situation like that, or who knows someone who has, knows that a much more complicated issue. And then in the divorce article, the Gallup proofs that I saw still had the parents' names attached to it, as well as the girl that was being interviewed. And I thought, well, if I were in that situation and I saw that paper on my coffee table at home, I wouldn't like it. So those were the 2 articles that came out. Those were the reasons. I don't remember, other than the runaway article, which was fine. There was probably another one, but I don't remember what that was. It's been 41 years since I've seen that paper.
Do you remember anything about the other articles in the Cup pages?
Yes, the front page was about prom. And the last page was about spring sports. And then we had the 2 pages in between. That came out. No, 3 and 4. Well, 4 was spring sports. 1 was the prom. I don't know what was on I don't remember what was on the other 2. I know that at the time I looked at them because I was looking, as I say, for a reason to take 2 articles out, or 2 pages out, rather, not 2 articles, 2 pages. And that's what I came up with.
When did you find out that the students had taken legal action against the school or you?
I was in a graduate class over at SIUE. This was in August or July of 83. And the Globe Democrat had an article that the ACLU had filed suit against the Hazelwood School District on behalf of 3 students because the principal had removed articles from the newspaper. And I had not heard of it. One of my classmates brought the article to me. and said, "Hey, you made the paper." That doesn't sound like a good thing. And that's when I first heard about it. Now, I'm certain that our attorney, Bob Bain, knew about it, naturally. And I'm not saying that I wasn't on the need to know list, at least yet. But it was kind of a surprise to me that it came out in the newspaper. And then as the facts unfolded and they had gotten advice from their teacher that's what they should, well, I'm not going to say that he said they should sue the district. He said, go to the ACLU and tell them your story. And so they took it from there.
What was your reaction to finding out the students took legal action?
Well, not much of anything. I thought it was a non-event, and it would have been a non-event had ACLU not got involved with it, but it became a landmark case. It is a case now that is taught in law schools across the nation, in educational law classes. It's one of the 4 outstanding student rights cases and of that time. The first one was Tinker, then we had Bethel versus Frazier, and New Jersey versus TLO, and then Hazelwood was the last one, which gave the districts or the board authority over the curriculum, and that's what the case was about.
How did the school district administration and school board react to the students taking legal action? What was the general response of the student population?
Well, naturally, they would like for it to not have happened because it cost the school district money, a lot of money, because the attorney, I mean, that's above and beyond what his obligations to the district were. So he charged for all that, and it took 5 years to go through that. But so far as reaction from the board, when Judge Nangle ruled in favor of the school board in '85, they considered that a victory. But then when they went to the appeals court, the district said, "No, we're going to stick with this. We're not going to give in." And that was when the appeals court ruled against the district. And then they said, "Well, we'll take it on to the Supreme Court." And they did. And so they paid the money to do that.
Okay. How do you feel about the impact of this case? How did it impact your reputation and the reputation of the school?
Had no effect at all. Like I say, this was a non-event. This was something that happened in a classroom that came to the principal's office, and I acted on that action or activity. It wasn't spread around the school, even though the girls did make some copies of those articles and handed those out at school, but I didn't hear anything about that. There was no punishment involved because they hadn't done anything wrong. Teachers didn't know about it. This was one class in journalism. The public didn't know anything about it. The board knew about it because the attorney was reporting to them the progress of the case and how it was going. Even when we went through depositions, they were not done on campus. They were done at the central office. So it was the first time that the students were aware of this case was October the 13th of 1987, when the court said that they would hear the case. Rita Braver, who was a reporter for one of the major news outlets, came to school, and several other news media people came to school to interview me and some of the kids, but it wasn't a big turnout. And there, the kids were saying, well, why are you asking me these questions? Those kids have already graduated. We don't even, I remember a couple of them said, we don't take journalism. So they just weren't aware of it. Now, January the 13th of 88, that was a different story. There was about 50 journalists with their with their cameras and all of that showed up around lunchtime. And I wasn't even at school. I mean, I was at central office. We were working on budget. And my assistant called me, and I went there. And they were gathered in the commons area. So that's a conservative number, but there's about 50 people all together with their cameras and the cameramen. So I divided them into two groups. And I said, the way we're going to do this is that half of you are going to stay with me, and the other half is going to go up to the journalism room, and you can talk to the kids. Then in 30 minutes, we're going to reverse places. You go up there, and they come down here, and in 1 hour, you're going to be out of here. We're not going to disrupt the educational process. And it worked just like clockwork. They got their questions answered. I answered their question. We got both groups through the process, and they left. But the school, the kids knew, but like I say, that was 1987. That was 5 years. Those kids were in the 7th, 8th grade at that time. So it takes a long time for something to move through the court. And it doesn't take that long to go through school. And it was like something they might have read in a magazine or something. They just didn't know anything about it. And, there was no walkouts, there was no demonstration, there were no flag burning or any of that kind of thing. And so, like I say, at school, it was a non-event. It was what happened out of school. Across the nation, the outrage that some of the journalists had, that the schools could, I'm going to say edit, that the school administration could edit a newspaper. I didn't say censor. I'm careful about that. But I was a part of the editorial process. And as the court ruled, schools have that prerogative. When you have authority over the curriculum, and if you're the instructional leader of that curriculum, you need to have a role in the outcomes. And so that's what I did. And that's how they ruled. And one other thing I'll add here that we had not thought of. We argued the case on the basis of the authority over the curriculum, but the court added in other expressive activities. And that was new to me. But it was very important and very necessary because there's a lot of other school activities that can get pretty questionable. And so it was a lot of wisdom on the part of the court to put that in.
Would you have done anything differently in hindsight?
No, not at all. Based on the time constraints that I had, and I offered the only option, but other than what I did, and that would have been to offer them the last paper and to change that and to reduce the number of pages and so on, which they didn't accept. So no, there's not anything I would have done differently.
I think that's everything.
Are we finished?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for joining the Zoom call and answering these questions. This has been a wonderful experience.
It's been a pleasure, Aiden. You guys are really good. You're really bright.